And we're live.
Welcome to the Save Our Children podcast. We're your hosts, Becky and Bridget, and we're back. Back from what, you ask? Back from summer break with our kids. School's back in session, and so we're ready to get back to podcasting. But before we get into any interviews with guests, we thought it would be fun to get together and bring everyone up to speed as to what we did over the summer. However, before we get into the fun stuff, we want to take a moment to recognize this past season and how different it was from the previous 18 months. Although we had podcasts posted occasionally, Bridget and I did not actually record any podcasts through most of May, June, and July. God talked to us. Actually, he talked to all three of us, including Emma, that we just needed to take a big step back and go internal and be present with our family to work on our mental health, boundaries, and peace. It really gave us an opportunity to learn what was important to us, the ability to say no, and to just stop and let the world catch up on what we have been speaking out about. We honestly didn't know where we were going to be led, but we prayed on it, sat still, and allowed God to heal our hearts and direct us to where He needed us to be. And we're so excited and blessed to be back here with all of you. So before we get into all that heavy stuff, let's actually start with some of the fun stuff we did this summer. Then we'll talk about why we took a break. Bridget, why don't you start? What kind of fun things did you guys do this summer?
First, I want to say I'm so glad to be back. It's been weird not podcasting, and definitely want to thank you for especially picking up the podcast over the last 2 months, even though at first it started as a week break and it was like, Bridget, what do you mean you're not podcasting? You're not recording? And then it was turned into what I realized when it was like, hey, can we jump on to do a podcast and start filming again? I was like, I sat back and I was like, oh my gosh, it's almost been 3 months. So to sit back and realize that, like, especially for me, is huge, because I'm usually like, okay, can we get in one more? Can we get in one more?
Yep.
Can we squeeze this in? So it's huge, especially because we're always working off each other's schedules, but then everyone else's time zones. So thank you for carrying the podcast. And before we get into heavy stuff, all the fun stuff that I was able to do, especially over the last month of summer, was a lot of traveling. And in the beginning of this whole journey and our year anniversary podcast, one thing that we all promised ourselves was being present and being in the presence of our family, and remembering and coming back to the bigger picture and what it was all about. So being able to step back, especially the timing of it was all God's timing, and listening to our bodies and listening to His message and just praying, like, that was huge. So I actually have been in New Mexico, Texas, California. So I've been all over, but glad to be home and glad to be podcasting again and share. Like, we literally have to play catch up, but there's a lot to share and so many stories that we'll make sure are heard. I know for me, like, I think even before the week before, no, literally a day before I went to, I think it was Texas. Yeah. No, California. I went to California. I jumped on a live and I didn't even expect that to happen, but it was something that was heavy on my heart, because what people don't see in the background, and one thing before we go into like what you were able to do with your family in the summer, was what people don't see in the background is, even though we're not on social media as much as we were and posting clips or sharing that message constantly, because there was so much other noise around, like the media and headlines coming out. So for us, we took the opportunity to be silent, because there's frustrations that come with that. But the reason why I jumped on a live when I did in regards to the military and Madeline's story with Janae was because we're constantly in DMs with survivors and talking to each other all the time and making sure we stay grounded. And that's one thing that's always stayed in, like, at the top of what has been important to us, is making sure nobody felt alone. So it was really weird even doing that live, because I hadn't been on lives or podcasting. So it honestly was like sitting back after even that story and so many more coming to us at that time, and you were getting hit in DMs and then my DMs, and then just seeing different messages everywhere. I was like, okay, this is the time to come back. Like, we're
Yeah.
getting signs everywhere. So I think too, well, it's really important to just remember to always take a step back and to listen to the messages around you and to be present. So with that being said, I know you've had a lot of changes too in your life, your family, kids, summer, but what fun things have you guys done this summer?
So yeah, our biggest thing, and this will be a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, but our biggest thing was our trip to Disney. And for as much as we talk here about how awful Disney is and all this stuff, I will not retract on that statement because it is. Um, my family, my big family, my parents, my siblings, my nieces and nephew, we all, every 3 years, we have a trip that we go out to Florida, go to Disney. This would be our, I believe now, fifth trip that we've done, fourth or fifth trip. And it was one of those really, really hard decisions that I had to make was, do I cut out a family trip that I don't know 3 years from now who will still be with us, where things can happen in a blink of an eye. And that doesn't mean necessarily my parents, anything could happen to anybody. And I wasn't going to pass up an opportunity to have memories with my family.
Yeah.
So it was really hard mentally. It was hard leading up to it. It was actually a whole lot less difficult when I got there because I was already prepared to only be going there for my family. I did not want to go necessarily in search of, oh my God, I'm be looking for everything and I'm hiding behind corners and doing whatever. Although we did search for stuff and there really isn't as much stuff as you would think out in the open. It really isn't. Right there, my sister-in-law her cousin works there and she has no idea. She's down underneath and does all the stuff and she has no idea of the stuff that goes on or what happens. And so it was a reminder to me that when, like, the evil of the world, probably 99.9% of the people who work or interact with that group have no idea it's happening right in there. And that we have to remember that piece of it, that, oh, you work for this company or you work for that company. Like, well, they do, but that doesn't mean they know the, like, upper echelon.
Yeah.
Some of the biggest things I would say about them is really the predictive programming, the trying to get people to think about things. Like, once you know about what the world is coming to and where things are going, and you can sit on these rides and you're like, oh, did they just really say that? Like, wow, okay. So they're trying to teach people how to do this. One of the biggest things that was kind of creepy, and I'll have to share a video of it next time, but one of the new rides, you go in and you're in this room and it probably holds 100 people, and you're in this room and they're like, we're gonna go through the portal of this to beam you up on this thing. And you look up in the sky and it's literally like, think Astro World with Travis Scott. Like, it's literally spinning around dust. And I brought this with me because I was like, I don't know what kind of weirdness. And I was like rubbing it and praying, like, don't take my energy. Like, you knew it was energy harvesting. And these people are like, oh, I'm so excited to go on this ride. Like, this is really cool. And I'm like, this is not cool. So I went there and we actually had a phenomenal time. Everything was good. It was a great time. And so I just took it for the family togetherness that it was. The nice thing is, well, not nice thing, but the nice thing is my family realized it wasn't as magical as it used to be. And the people aren't as nice and it wasn't as good. I know. And so I was like, all right, one step at a time. They're starting to
planting seeds.
Exactly. They're starting to do that. So that was probably the biggest part of our summer. I was able to travel also to Texas to see one of my friends, Laura. But really, my boys started school super early. They started the 20th of July. And so they've already been in school for 2.5 weeks. And so I felt like when summer really got started, because they ended the last week in May, and we only had about, I would say 6 weeks. And then my older son started marching band. So 2 weeks of July was devoted to driving him to and from school to do marching band. So I feel like I didn't have a summer.
It flew. It flew.
It was crazy. It was crazy, but it was a ton of fun and whatever, but it was definitely God ordained that we took this time off, because if we were also trying to add pieces in, like I know you had family that you had to go visit and you had things that you were doing, that to try and add this in or add in lives or add in whatever, like it would have been, would we have done it? Yes.
Absolutely.
Could we have made it work? Absolutely. But it
mentally, no.
Yeah. It got to a
Mentally,
point at the end of last year that was just like, I've got to stop. Something's got to give.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say the same to you. Like, not only am I blessed, because I know that back in February when I quit my job, I was like, I got to stop. Everything's got to stop, all of it. And I took a break. And when you had said, guys, I just need to take like a week off. I'm just going to take a week off. And I was like, no, we're going to take the summer off, because if you're asking for me, I knew if you were asking me for a week, you needed way more than a week, because it was bad. And
then it was like, maybe not a week. Okay, maybe I'll come back in a couple days. And you're like, Bridget, no, you're not doing it. No. I'm not allowing it.
And we were so lucky that we literally had enough podcasts, I think, to play out through the middle of June.
Yeah.
And so for the listeners, you've probably only seen that we've been gone about a month and a half, and then we've had a couple here and there, but we haven't been on together for 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we've talked, like we talk constantly every day, but podcasting and live wise, like we haven't been on. This is the first time in 3 months that we've actually touched anything with the podcast. Yep. And especially for me, and we've honored that, and boundaries and respecting each other's boundaries. And people are like, well, how do you make it work? And it's at the end of the day, it's all of us as a team and working together to do and make it work, and making time for what we love and what we want to do and raise awareness in the bigger picture of the children. But I think too, important thing that you touched on is there's so much heavy energy, and we literally, for me, especially when I was like, okay, a week, and then I was like, it just felt like literally, we talk about spiritual attacks all the time, and it was like getting hit left and right. And I was like, I can't take anymore. Like I literally at a mental break, and like I can't. And so finally, like realizing that oftentimes I push myself to where I finally got to a point where I depleted myself. Yes, I could have done it. I would have forced myself to do it. But I've also made a point where I said I was going to focus on presence this year, as well as not only being present, but then the presence of it, but also making sure to protect our energy, because especially when we're talking about these heavier topics, we're getting hit left and right. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't see. So when it comes to the spiritual attacks, it was literally like, okay, learn to say no, boundaries. And that no just meant for that time being, and sitting in that season and seeing the bigger picture of what's next. And there's so many media headlines that it honestly was beautiful to sit back and watch it play out, because we were literally eating our popcorn, sipping our tea, because there's so many trials and so many media headlines and people talking about trafficking left and right. And we're just sitting here on our phones like, oh my gosh, finally, oh wow, this person's actually speaking out. But I think the most important thing when that happened for us, and I know for me, it was super, actually all of us, it was super frustrating, because to us, it's not a trend. And it shouldn't be a trending topic. So it was almost like seeing that, it was a slap in the face to us, but then to survivors, because it's like, wow, did someone just push the green light and say, all of you puppets can talk now? And so it was so frustrating to see where it made us really sit back and watch it play out, because it's like, hello, we've been talking about that. Yes, it was good to see it and more people with bigger platforms finally speaking out. But the sad part of it was like, it shouldn't have waited that long or took that long to
Like
finally.
they're only speaking out because it's a trend now, not
Yep.
because it's something they should have been speaking out about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was interesting this morning because I'd messaged you this morning when that I was kind of talking, I was thinking about what our introduction is, because no time like 30 seconds before having to give an introduction to think about it. But I was thinking about it, and it's not honestly until you kind of come through a season that you realize what that season was. And we talk on here all the time about spiritual attacks, and we're having bad days and we pray over them and we do this, but never have we had a time, especially a time where all three of us felt like we all had to step back. Like,
Yeah.
there was a time where like we didn't hear from Emma. Like, she was so busy with, because she of course started a new job and we love it for her. We didn't hear from her. And we're like, did she get kidnapped? Like, I think I probably pushed like,
Amber Alert.
really mad at us and she's not talking to us. And we've like tried all the things. She was so busy and focused on what she was doing. But the same thing for her. We just all had to step away from what we were doing. And again, it's this idea. Like, I remember thinking in May, I don't know if we're going to end up back doing this again. Like, I don't know where this is going to lead us. And it's like, you put it out there. I hope we do, but I also understand if we don't. And we really needed this break, and for God to protect us and shield us and say, you guys, all three of you really just need to take a step back. And of course, Emma was still doing her podcast, but like, we didn't really do anything with Stand By Survivors. We didn't really do anything with our podcast. And to your point about people starting to learn, it was really nice to be able to say, hey, we have a platform already. We're the ones who 2 years ago or a year and a half ago started a platform, started a website, started podcasts. We've got 70 episodes. We've got 100 episodes, like for Emma, that you can go back and listen to these people. We've been saying this for a long time. And I think we talk about it, and we talk about where we want to be with the education of people. And little did we know that we would have such a compiled list of things that people could come to see now that this is starting to become the trend. Like, hey, have you seen our website? Hey, have you looked at these survivors? Hey, have you done this stuff? And it's a super blessing for us that when we just had to take a step back, God said, you guys need to take a step back. You need to just wait, let the world catch up, but you've already done the work. So now you have work and stuff available for all of these people to see. And you don't realize it until you come back out of the valley that this is what that was meant to be.
Absolutely. And I think it's important too. And what we've done a beautiful job at is, no matter what direction we all get pulled. And over the last couple of months, we've all been pulled in so many different directions, and we've been given different opportunities. And all those opportunities come in different packages and all look a little bit different and connected to different people with different sources, different money, all of that behind it. So sitting back, and what I was really proud of is all three of us, we stayed grounded and on the same page of making sure it was we prayed on it, but it would also, how do I want to say this? It would reflect in the spotlight of the true intentions of what it really should stand for and stand on values and morals, versus how people often do things for clout, and they aren't, and for that following, for the blue check marks and who knows who. For us, it's always been, we never cared, and we still don't care about that. And if you have your platform and you're using it, blue check mark, yeah, love you. Thank you for using it.
High five.
But
Mhm.
other than that, we've never been about that. And it was never about that for us. So for us to stay grounded, and especially during that time frame, and it's not like, hey, look at me, this is what we're doing, and this is what our page is. For us, it was sharing the awareness of it, because it's not about us. And our platform, still till this day, and will continue to stay that way, is it's that person's story to tell. And we're
Yep.
just the one who had the courage to share that story and speak out. And so, and being able to connect so many people and being that bridge to it all, that's what it will always be about for us. So knowing that we've had so many opportunities, that we've started on different things, and we're like, yeah, we'll join, we'll be a part of this. But then sitting back and then like knowing we don't have to take every opportunity.
Yep.
And praying on things has really been an eye-opening experience, especially like doing trafficking and seeing more people now speak out about it. It's been really interesting to see how things are playing out.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because, to your point about how whatever we do, we always try and we always make sure with each other that what we're doing is still for the best view of the brand, of whatever. Like, I don't want to say something or do something that hurts us. I don't want to do whatever. But one of the things I think is really interesting over the last 6 months, or even less than that, is the way that we've taken this podcast, this group, whatever, and we've all branched off differently because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like Emma, she's doing her job and she moved across country and she's doing amazing things. And you are now starting your brand and doing all of this stuff. And if you want to speak about it, we can go there. If not, we can. Becky, shut up. But then even like for me, I started, well, and a couple of weird, just really weird things that have come, not even from this, but because we were able to sit in our peace for a minute, see how what we've done can also now influence this. So I have it right here, so I'm going to show it because it's cool. My son and I wrote a book. Have you? Yeah. And so
I don't even know this. You guys are getting my live reaction.
You didn't know that we did this?
No, I knew that you guys were doing it, but I didn't know that it was like hard copy done, like
super done on Amazon. So
wait,
it was so one of,
you said Amazon? What? I don't even know this. I need to go buy it. Hello.
Come on, Bridget, honestly. That's so here's a perfect prime example of censorship in whatever, because I posted about it on Instagram, and if she hasn't seen it and we are this close, that'll tell you what they do. And this is nothing, it's about a book. So when I pulled my older son off for homeschooling last year, one of his tasks was that he was going to have to write a book. So him and I were like, what are we going to write a book about? And I'm like, I don't want it about some nonsensical thing about building in Minecraft or whatever, like crap there is. We're going to write a book. But what we figured out, or what we went through the first quarter that he was home, was he spent probably an hour almost every single day having a meltdown. He was overwhelmed. He was frustrated. He was scared. He didn't know what was going on. He didn't know how to do it. And we had to work through that. Yeah. So by the time January, February hit, I was like, we need to write a book about all of those emotions that you went through, because it's a big thing. And there's a lot of kids that don't know. Well, Peyton has a stuffed Minecraft fox called Diver, and he wanted to make it about the little fox named Diver. And we made the story. It's called The Big Feeling of Being Mad. And it's all about this little fox who comes home one day and tells his mom that he's mad. And the mom says, okay, well, there's a lot of feelings that feel like mad. Are you disappointed? And he's like, what's disappointed? And so she explains to him what that is. Are you overwhelmed? He's like, what's overwhelmed? And ends up that he's really just hungry. So he's hangry, and that is why he's really mad, and he doesn't know what's really mad. But the idea is that parents and children can read this book, and now they have words for the emotions that most people just don't know about.
Yeah.
And yeah, you heard those terms and you do whatever, but are you really asking your kids, but do you feel this way? So yeah, they're mad and yeah, they're having a fit on the floor, but instead of yelling at them for having a fit on the floor, are you asking them, did somebody hurt your feelings today? Is that why you're really mad? Are you overwhelmed with all the school and we've got to help you figure all that out? And so that's the idea. And then we're going to go through, and so we wrote it, and then I was like, all right,
Sign one yet?
huh?
Did he sign one yet?
He actually has, oh no, yes, we have a couple signed, but I'll get you one. I'll bring you
Well,
one.
I'm buying one. Hello. But
It's
yeah,
cute.
we also have to send, wasn't it? I think it was when we were on talking about going back to your creative self and like childhood and all of that with TMR. So
Mhm.
we have
I
to
have
send
to sign. Yes, we are
Yeah.
talking about it. Well,
Yeah.
he's excited, so I have to send him one because he was excited that TMR said that he wanted one. So when we wrote the book, and him and he actually wrote most of the dialogue. I wanted it to be his like schoolwork project.
Yeah.
So
Homeschooling. This was a homeschooling project, by
it
the
was
way.
a homeschooling project. Yep. And he's back at school. That was always the agreement, is that he would go back into school, but this was probably the best like year we could have had. And so it was his project. So I've edited it. I've made a couple of tweaks here and there, but then I went on to Fiverr and I hired someone to do the illustrations. So we did all the illustrations, or we didn't, this person did. And then I went on, I was like, all right, we're going to publish it. We'll figure it out. And so I went on to Amazon, and it's a Kindle book, and it's a paperback book that you can buy on Amazon. And so him and I are now published authors for a kids book that we wrote. And we're going to write, I think we're going to do like a series. We want to do different emotions, like even happy. You're grateful for things, you're joyous of that, like all the different stuff. What do these emotions feel? And the funny thing about it is, and to get way back to my point, is all of that comes from what we talk about on this podcast all the time. That when you can heal yourself, you can heal your kids. And if we can now help other people learn to do that just by a kids book with a fox, like how cool is that? So yeah, that's what we did.
So exciting. And another person, well, we'll talk offline about it, but even Torby and the whole kids.
Yes.
And she's pregnant again. So sending
prayers.
Yeah, she's pregnant again. Or she's pregnant and her baby's coming soon. So yeah, keep her in your prayers. But I think too, even just going off of that, and that's so exciting. I'm so happy. Like this, you guys literally are getting our live reactions because, as you know, I didn't even know that. But I knew about the writing, but I didn't know it was done. Yeah. But even just with that, I think it's important to like showcase what you just said, because God puts us in different seasons, and what we've always done and will still do is be transparent throughout our podcast and in our daily lives. We wanted to reflect on leading by example, and we don't know it all as parents. We learn from each other. We have different seasons, difficult times. So even though we branched out and we get pulled in different directions and people will try to split us up or do whatever, people don't realize that we often tie back to our core and we work together. We have our organization, Standby Survivors, that we created because of all of this. It led us to something bigger because we weren't seeing organizations standing by morals and values and actually doing what they were saying that they were saving the children. So that's one thing that sparked that. Then it led to podcasting led to that. And so it's taken us on so many different journeys. And then also with that is you went through a season of not only with work and like financial and life and not knowing, like once you're working with certain companies or even alignment in your own daily life, it becomes, especially being awakened, speaking out the way we do, it becomes harder to function in those settings. And once you're out of alignment, it literally forces you to choose something different.
Yep.
And it's for the better. Yeah, you don't know what's going to happen and it's rocky, but you have your faith to stand back on. And we've had each other through it all. And so you also went through this phase of homeschool, but now we can also relate to that experience on our podcast and talk about it. And I know with me and everything that was going on through my daughter, which will take a couple of podcasts, because there's so much with those experiences. Like, yes, it was hell and back going through everything I did with my daughter, but had I not stopped and taken that pause, it could have went down a deeper and darker path. So focusing on the mental health aspect and sitting here saying, oh, well, we preach about this, but then just forcing myself through it and not really tuning into that mental health aspect of it and getting to like the root of it. Like, we would sit there and be hypocrites if we didn't do that ourselves. So
Exactly.
So like, just even seeing like with my daughter and like the whole social media and discipline and crop tops and the fashion culture and all of that parenting teen life aspect, it's also given us an opportunity to, with my new podcast of doing my whole line with Bear, I'm going to do Bear XB only because Bear's obviously popular and taken, but I'm not going to share like until later, like what that actually stands for. But with that, like, I'm going to end up tying it to a teen line because it's going to be something for her. And I'm going to tie it to a merch and fashion, whether it's jewelry and clothes, but mostly right now, jewelry will be attached to it and empowerment. But I want to, like we've also done on our podcast, is going back to the root of things. And so that will be something, is with everything and learning about technology. And if we didn't have our podcast, there's no way I could have got through that season the way I did, because I had people like Yami and Chris Young, right? That's it, right? I said that right?
Chris McKenna.
Chris McKenna. Chris McKenna. No, Chris McKenna and Protect Young Eyes. That's what I meant. That's where I get the young from. So Protect Young Eyes, and then Red Light Rebellion. So all of those, Embark, all of those apps and things that we talk about and people that we've connected to help me get through that. But it also, I feel like God gave me that experience to now be able to talk about it firsthand, especially being out of charter school and comparing it to like the culture and society and seeing it from a different point of view, and then seeing it from a teen point of view and dealing with like literally Runaway and the Gilbert Police and all of that fun parenting stuff. So it will be on a podcast, just not today, because that will take a lot.
Because we don't have enough time to do it.
So it will be on a podcast. But even talking about suicide and like emotions, your book and emotions, and like things that people say out of anger or just out of a reaction. And so, and going back to accountability. So there will be a lot coming up on our podcast that we'll discuss even in our own lives and parenting. And even though we've branched out, what those experiences now have led us to do, of giving us the ability to create something more. Because like, I know for me, the new podcast, I was like, okay, I want to do this, but now I want to add a teen aspect to it because the clothing's not there for the kids.
Yes.
Not only have we talked about the music, but the clothing and just the whole empowerment and confidence of that, and positive affirmations. It's not there. And so, that's going to be one of my new journeys.
And I love that, because one of the things I was just having lunch with an old coworker yesterday, and I was like, we do not tell our kids enough. I just posted about it today too. Like, we don't tell our kids enough that it's okay, that normal is being not normal. Like in the ages between 12 and 16 or 11 and 16 or whatever you want, it is perfectly normal to have no clue what it is you want to do, because who you are at 12 is not going to be the same person you are at 16, and is not going to be the same person you are at 20. And so we don't, the culture we live in wants to put people into holes. They already want to make sure that you are XYZ. You're the cool kid, you're the drama kid, you're the this kid, you're the that kid. It doesn't matter. And if you don't fall into one of those holes, now you feel like you're not made right.
Yeah.
And that is how they are pulling this whole transgender pedophilia nonsense over our heads, is because these kids feel like they need to fall into a category. So if they don't fall into a category, or they're part of 5 categories. You can be a really cool jock and also be a cheerleader. You can be a really cool or nerdy this, but also cool here. You don't have to be any of that. You can be a football player, but go to church. You can, like, we tell kids that you're only this, that you and your person and your emotional state is tied to what this one thing is that you'll do. And especially in such a volatile time of life, the crap I did in high school I don't do any of that stuff anymore. I don't even care about that stuff anymore. And to make it seem like that is their whole life, that at 14 years old, you have to know what you're doing. And if you miss something or do something or this or that, that you have made it or ruined your life, is nonsense from the pits of hell that we as parents have got to stop allowing outside world to talk about. Because it really is, I don't know how many times I sat in this office with Peyton when he was here doing work, and he would just start crying. I'd be like, why are you crying? And he goes, I don't know. And I'd have to say, that's okay. It's normal. It's normal to be sad today. It's not normal to allow that sadness to seep in and to continue. It is your responsibility to get up and go for a walk, to make sure you finish whatever is overwhelming you, to go say a prayer, to go listen to music, whatever it is, it's your responsibility. But it's normal for you to feel sad right now. It's normal for you to not know what's going on. And so that's the sort of stuff that I love that you're doing this line, and that you're going to do a podcast, because it really is. So we have girls right now who are wearing clothes that are terribly inappropriate for their age, but then we're mad at the boys who are looking at them. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
We don't have it. So as a boy mom, I am thrilled that you are doing this, because we can't expect one and not the other.
Yeah. And I want to tie it back to even like what you said, is the labels, like even as adults and social media. And there's so many labels, and everyone's trying to fit into this box or look one way and feel that that's all that's accepted, and feel that social media makes it seem and creates this facade of everything's so perfect and life is beautiful. And yes, granted, it is grateful. We wake up every day and we have food, we have water, but not everybody looks at it that way. So pulling back the veil and really saying, and like not only showing like the gratitude of it, but like the reality of removing all the labels and just really going back to being yourself and authenticity. So that's one thing that like I'm going to be focusing on, especially being a girl mom and having a teenager, because it's been rough. Let me tell you, it's been rough. But it's gotten better. And most people are like, will sit here and say, oh, well, like social media will try to push that pressure of sharing it as you're going through it. And everyone has their own way of doing things. And I know one thing that we are all really big on is projection in healing. So we won't talk about things until we're in that place ourselves to be able to talk about it, because of course, like every day is a new day. So we've been focusing on one day at a time and going back to even emotions and what does that look like, and addressing it. And then it's also been nice having the women's group that we've been going to. And the next one I'm excited for is the fact that it does take a village to raise a family, and literally you need that foundation set, and you need that stable foundation. So I will definitely be sharing more, as well as Becky will share more on her experiences and everything that we've done, even with parenting over the last couple of months, because we've had a lot of different journeys and they all look completely different, not only with podcasting, but parenting as well. And even talking about like the journeys in podcasting is like what people also don't realize, and what we have come awakened to and interesting to see is like just how dirty people play, and they're willing to do whatever they can to get that limelight. And so for us, it's like it's been interesting to even sit back on that and just know like everything happens for a reason, and to just not focus on that and just and be the light of it and lead by example. And just we've done really good at tuning things out and I wouldn't say shutting people out because we're always welcoming, but
shutting the noise out.
Discernment and shutting
Yeah.
them out. Yeah. So
yeah, and I think it really has been it was a definitely needed, I think also well-deserved. I'll say it was a well-deserved break. Like I don't even know how many podcasts we have in there, 70 something, and it's been just over a year. And so we really busted it and we really, really did our work. But like you said, we can't sit here and be hypocrites and say, oh, you should really be there for your kids, and then we're ignoring our own. Like that's not how it works. But I think like it still is, because we went through this season, we can now bring our experiences to it. And that just makes us more authentic with what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go. So,
and to even sitting back and having to listen to my kid, like once she finally did break, and then tell me like about podcast, like me having a podcast and speaking out to the extent I do, for her, it was rebellion. So learning about that and like that kind of triggered part of it, even though a lot of it is projection based on everything else that happened. But a lot of like, even that is learning that I even triggered that, but mostly because it's not like being at school and knowing I talk about it, or I'm in public and I talk about it all the time. I was at the farmer's market today. I talk about it all the time. That's just what I do. I can't stay silent about it. So for our kids, it can become overwhelming and too much. So having to sit back and being like, okay, and remembering to look at it from like that point of view too, and remembering like, even though they know what we do, like little ears are always listening. So remembering to sit back and checking like their emotions and what they feel on it as well. That's one thing I've also had to learn and reflect on. And again, be present in those moments. So,
and that we don't, even though that's actually interesting that you brought that up. And I absolutely love that you were able to pause enough that she came to you and was like, here's really what's bothering me. Because until you stop and you do that, they're not going to, because you're too busy or you're whatever. So I absolutely love that came out. We have to remember as parents that just because we're the ones out fighting the fight, we want our kids to be strong. We want them to be able to stand up, but they're young and they shouldn't have to fight the fight. They shouldn't have to go to school and fight against their friends for shit that shouldn't be in a school. Like, that's ridiculous.
What just sparked a memory off of you saying that is, what I do love is, I'll always say it because I trigger people all the time. So sorry, not sorry.
Yep,
so
true.
Even to my own kids, sorry, not sorry. Because, and the reason why I say this and the reason why it's important with that trigger is, even though our podcast and me speaking out to the extent I do, and mind you, her school had a podcasting parenting group on it. So they work with another organization, which I'm not a fan of and I do not support. So for me, it made me be louder on her campus and around the school. So it was almost like a lot of people knew that. And so her friends, it was like, oh yeah, that's my mom. Like, can you just wait in the car? She's like, oh, it's my mom. She's going to talk about it. So that's kind of like one thing. But then also my sorry, not sorry trigger on that is the fact it made her comfortable to tell me what was going on campus. And they had written some notes to the school, and a couple of teachers got suspended due to pedophilia and due to inappropriate conversations with children on my own daughter's campus, which will come up on a podcast. And so it gave us her being comfortable to having that conversation and her friends knowing what to do. Or it's sad that all those kids had to take matters into their own hands, but then finally action only happened because of a parent finally went in, and it had to be the parent where they could prove something. The kids were told there wasn't enough proof. And that's what we often hear, or, oh, you're lying, or, oh, like that teacher wouldn't do that. And it's because of their background. So something finally happened because a parent had proof, because an adult made an inappropriate action and text something inappropriate and a parent saw it. And so had that parent not been involved with that, like engaged with their kid, who knows how many more kids it would have happened to.
Absolutely.
So seeing like that aspect of it like gave me chills, because it's like, oh my God, this is why we do this. Like, yes, we often know that, but like it happening on my own like daughter's campus, and then knowing like they talk about trafficking, knowing that like they have military background people and everybody on their campus, and like they're in good hands and they fight the fight. But at the end of the day, it all goes back to proof.
Yeah. And again, I think that for us fighting whatever fight it is, if it's education, if it's trafficking, if it's medical freedom, whatever it is that we are all talking about, we have to model to our kids what that looks like. That doesn't necessarily mean, although it will end up this way anyway, it doesn't mean we put them in the battle. This is one of the things that's a really big question for Ryan and I, is we all know that this nonsense is going to start up again in the fall.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of homeschooling. Kiss my ass. Like, I've done it already. I'll yank you out in a heartbeat. But to what level do we, because we're willing to fight, make our kids suffer because of it? And so it's, again, just having that balance of, okay, what are you guys comfortable doing?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, like, masks, for example, if all of a sudden they put masks back in, we haven't had masks in Arizona for like 2 years. We're not even doing that nonsense. But if it comes back or they try it, I'm willing to send you to school without one. But that means that you're going to end up in the principal's office. You're going to have all of those conversations. I'm not above cussing out some principal, done it before. So again, but I don't want respectfully. I totally was very respectful.
Just knew her rights, her constitutional rights.
Yes. And we can say all of those things as parents, but we also want to make sure that our kids are respectful to their to authority and respectful to leadership. But you can be respectful and not follow what you think is unconstitutional. And so it's awesome that she came to you and said this sort of thing, because you know what? We really do want rebellion. We want them to have that fire in their soul. Could you leave it not at our house? Like, that would be great. If you could rebel the world.
Also, like, even because it came down to a point of like technology, which I didn't know what was being used, because it was being done behind trap phones through my back and all of that stuff.
Yep.
On campus only. But it also goes back to like the fact of like our kids having a mind of their own and honoring that as well, and seeing like it from their point of view and their lens and what really goes on the campus. So like there's a lot, especially that I've seen, where they do have the admin and a like great foundation and authority and values and all of that. But when it goes back to the education, which we're going to talk about education, is a lot of these teachers don't need degrees anymore. And so what the children are really learning, and then you have us speaking on the things that we talk about. And like, we're very open with our kids when it comes to history and knowing like the
Yep.
true history and the Constitution and all that. Like, we're very outspoken about that. So then like sitting back, even like I was to look back and say, okay, I could be to blame for, yes, there's accountability, but then also like boredom in class,
Yep.
knowing like, what's the point of this if this is
If
really
this is really the truth or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
So like, even looking back from like that conspiracy theory standpoint, and then like, this is what the school and like the predicted, like the programming of all of it, and like MK, talking about MK Ultra and all of that. It's like, okay, Bridget, you went too far, because then it's like now in school it's not acts.
Did
So
we? No.
you kind of have that balance, and then you look at, okay, because we did homeschooling during COVID because of the whole mask and all that. So we went
Right.
from homeschool to a big school. Now we're back at a smaller school and charter school. And so now getting acclimated back to a smaller campus, it's been such, even though we missed the first week of school, because we were traveling, whatever, it's been honestly such a peaceful experience where we both compromised at, okay, if you give this, I'll give this. And we compromised at somewhere where she would be happy. And so seeing even like just that little adjustment as well. So yeah, it's been interesting too.
That's awesome, because I would say the same thing for us. Like, it's been really calm, and I'll use that carefully because it's only been 2 weeks. So you're like, you don't want to say that too much, but
Right.
the first day, so Peyton is in 9th grade. He just started high school, and the first day he went to school, they jacked up his schedule. He came home, and the look on his face was the same look when I took him out of 8th grade. And I was like, oh my God, we did the wrong thing. We did the wrong thing putting him back. It was not a good look. He had a schedule change middle of the day. He had kids that he ran into from middle school
So
that
the
kept
anxiety of it.
yes, the anxiety of it, of he ran into kids from middle school that kept calling him short. Again, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, it's so obnoxious. You just want to punch these little children in the face. But they are so, you have to remind them that they have such poor self-esteem that that's the only way that they can feel better, is to make you feel bad. So don't let them make you feel bad.
And the parenting, like, one thing I've noticed is like, where, seeing all the stuff going on, like, where is the parenting? Like,
No idea.
that's one thing I will say is like, parents have to start being accountable, because, and that's another reason why we started this podcast, and just even holding ourselves accountable, because right now the parenting and like family values and morals and all of that has really been lost. And so that's sad to see.
Yeah. And so we actually had a really good conversation about, like, he could come home that night and he was really upset and he cried. And I said, this right here, this is why you don't have social media, because you can come home and you have zero connection to school. Nobody's bothering you. Nobody's picking on you. Nobody's saying things, whatever. I said, so you now get to come home and not have any part of that. That right there is why you don't have social media. And you can tell people that's why, because you need a safe space when you go home. The next day we did a prayer. We did put on his armor of God, because you have to remember that those people are just spirits of evil trying to break you down. So he went, and so we do that regularly. And now he's had an amazing first 2 weeks of school. Just last week, Connor tried out for the middle school baseball team. It was really going to be on the fence. There was like 35 kids. Some of these kids are really big. Here's where Connor's age, because he just turned 12 and everybody now in his grade is going to be turning 13. So he's really, really young. And we didn't know which way it was going to go, but damn, he went out and he, like, balls to the wall, made it the best he could.
Aww.
One of the coaches, he didn't make it, but it was such a blessing in disguise. One of the coaches, or the main coach, Connor's a catcher. He was trying to catch a kid he had been pitched to from him.
Yeah.
He went to catch it, a crappy ball, went to catch it, bounced off his glove, hit a metal box in the cage, whatever. And the coach goes, Jesus Christ, can't you block anything? And I was like, and so of course he just crushed his spirit. And then he was going to bat and he's like, would you just swing the ball? Like, whatever, just really kind of a jackass guy. you know what, maybe the dude's having a bad day, he's overwhelmed, whatever, not going to go into it. Come to find out, this same coach is a club team coach, and he, when he didn't win in a tournament, went across and pushed or punched the other coach. And so many parents, and this is all to say,
this is a grown adult.
Two grown adults, a grown man who is now allowed to be with at all times these children. He's not a teacher at the school either, he's just a dad, gets to now impact the spirit of these children. And so I know so many parents are out there saying, well, if the coach is hard on them, then that means that they see something and they want to push them hard. There is a very huge difference between pushing your kid because you see something after you earn trust and respect and honor. Then you can say, you know what, I know you can do better. Let's work harder. Let's do these things. Belittling them is because you have an ego issue and you need to make little kids feel bad about themselves so you feel good. There are two very different reasons. Yeah. And so I said, because Connor, he's on a club team and he's got two of the most amazing coaches. One of them has a really strong philosophy about little kids, trying to push little kids to be major leaguers. The point of being little is to continue to love the sport so much you want to continue when your body catches up to your ability.
Yeah.
And so it was really, again, if you want to talk about God ordained timing, this coach came in and we worked with him over the summer, and then it was having conversations with him. He played for the majors. He was a catcher in the major leagues, and he gets it. And to be able to say at 11, 12 years old, you don't have to play like that. That's not what this is about. You're not grown enough. You're going to hurt yourself if you do this. To then be able to walk into a season where we have a coach where it's like, yeah, that was definitely meant to be, because I don't want my son to hate the sport that he absolutely loves. Do I think he's going to the major leagues? Who the hell knows? I'm not there, but
yeah,
probably I don't want him there because there's a lot of random shit I don't want any part of.
No,
But
we'll have to do a separate podcast on that, because I want to talk about even like expectations, especially in sports or extracurricular activities that parents, especially nowadays, put on the children due to social media, and where people think that you have to now create your kid a social media account or like TikTok or YouTube and start creating.
We're just posting them all the time about
instead of enjoying that moment and really remembering like their age and reflect back and looking at them as children and allowing them to enjoy those childhood years and not taking the fun out of it, but also like from a parent standpoint and like even spectator standpoint of like being charged to see like your kids and your nieces and nephews or whoever it may be to go watch them play a sport like at such a young age, or like the profit that is happening on children is a whole nother topic, especially in the sports industry. So that will be definitely something we'll have to talk about.
Yeah, we'll have to do a podcast on that, because that's a definite, we have a lot of information between the two of us about different things. And I'm wondering, that would actually be cool. I wonder if Connor's coach would come on and talk about like what he thinks about little kids and different stuff, whatever. That would be
cool from all different standpoints too, using our connections of like even college and all the different age ranges. So we'll definitely table that.
And again, I don't want people to hear what I'm not saying. I think that coaches have to have a line and kids have to toe the line, and there's things like that, but there is a way to make people do. I mean, but that goes beyond sports. If you are a leader of anything, belittling someone because they're not doing what you want is never going to get you what you need.
Absolutely. All remembering unity.
Yes, exactly. Well, this was a fun catch up. I know. Right? And it tells you guys, like, for real, it tells you how much we've been in touch, but we haven't actually been super connected in the last 3 months. We've just been doing life. And so it's been really, this is for us. Like you said, we have live reactions because we're like, we didn't know that.
Yeah. And we'll even have to do another one sharing like you and leaving work. I don't even think we did a podcast on that. like
I've talked about it, but nothing.
but like your new journey and what you're doing and like your side business and all of that. So we haven't even shared that aspect of it. So there's so much that we still have to catch up on. And most people
bring Emma on and do that too.
Yeah. And like, even just like, because we've never really talked about it, and we'll take a moment to talk about it before we wrap up, is like, we at the end of the day volunteer to do what we do in advocating and raising awareness because it's something that we love and something that we have passion for. And it's not just about our children, and it is about all the children globally and survivors globally. And just remembering that at the end of the day, that is the bigger picture of literally being the light, leading by example. And if we can help save one child, one survivor, one mom, raising awareness, or dad, or whoever it may be, mental health. We often talk about suicide and mental health as well. So it's not just about us and our families, it's about everybody and the greater good of humanity, and bringing that back and just being a good human being, but also remembering that we're human too. Like, so we often have to sit back and what we don't share is what goes on behind the scenes and what we do a lot in our day-to-day lives, because we never wanted to make it about us, because it's not about us. So just really quick reflecting on that, when you don't see us on social media, it's because we are human. We have families. Like, for me, I'm a single mom. I have my daughter full time. I also run my parents' family business and catering company. So I do all the social media for all of that. So I think I run, like, right now, I think I'm running, with new podcasts, I think I'm running 4 social media accounts, which is a lot. And especially because I'm creating content, and we're often filming and creating content even for our own stuff. And Becky runs the website and all that. So it takes literally a village to do everything that we're doing. So I'm running that company. And then we have our organization stuff that we work on with Standby Survivors. We have our podcast. I'm starting a new podcast. And then we find
crazy, by the way.
we find time to volunteer in between all of that in our family. So like, if you really did a day in the life of us, it'd be like, oh my gosh, how do they do it? But we do it because we make time for it and we love it. So, and just going off of that is even Becky. She has a lot going on too with her kids. And if you want to share even your side stuff, and thankfully for you, like, this is how crazy it is. I own a Cricut. And I'm not the pro like Becky, but thankfully, like, when I need side projects, because Becky isn't at her other job and she has a company, which she's going to share about, she has a business that does this stuff. I'm like, Becky, I don't care. I will pay you. I just need you to print me these so I can heat press.
30 cents. I'm going to stand up and grab something so I can show. I have a couple all over the place.
So even like, I'm willing to pay for the service just so I don't do it, because I don't have the time to do it.
Well, it's interesting because it's one of those sites. So I'll start back in February. I said, absolutely enough with corporate America. I'm done. I know I've talked about it on this podcast before. But I spent a lot of the last 5 months just trying to figure out, okay, what's next? What do I do? I can't make money doing nothing. And do I have to make money? Yes, I do, unfortunately, have to make money. And to keep my lifestyle that I like anyway, I have to make money. And so I started a business a while back called Vinyl Art by Becky, and it's rolled flowers and Cricut and different things like that. But I figured a long time ago that I would have to make something like 200 of these a day to make any level of money that is going to be sustainable. So I don't do it as a business that is my business. That's my company. I do it for fun, and I love it. And that is what I do. Like, a lot of times I'll be sitting here doing stuff while I'm talking because it's something I can do. But like, for example, I actually switched this one recently. It'll go up, but and it's hard to see, but like, I make all the flowers, and then I put the Cricut as the sticker on the top. The one I just did recently, is I found a book at Goodwill. It was about the story of Queen Esther in the Bible. And so I take the books and I rip the pages out, and then I make the flowers out of all of the books. And you can see it says, perhaps you were created for such a time as this. That's the story of Esther. And if you don't know it, you can look it up. But
I need that, like similar colors for my new podcast room.
All right, well, you can have it. So it's literally all of the flowers are the pages out of a book. And then I have an Instagram page, Final Art by Becky. And then that's kind of the fun thing that I do. But yeah, Bridget's right. She'll say, can you cut me out this? And for me, I use it so often that I just kind of know this is the best, or that's the best, or here's what is, and I'll print it out, and then we'll meet up. Oftentimes we meet up while I'm at baseball practice. She'll just come, or I'm at a game. She'll just come and we'll meet up for a few minutes, and I can give her whatever it is that's needed. And so I found that if I can do things that make my heart happy, I can do the work. I also just started doing contract work, which is similar to my old job, but I am not tied to a computer. I am not tied to a schedule. I do it when I feel like it, whenever I want. And so that's the job that makes me money. That is what I need. But then now I get to do all these other things that are building social media posts and creating things for people that are needed, being able to do my art, because that's really where my heart is happy. I can write books with my kid. And so what I've discovered, and this is a whole nother podcast, what I've discovered over the last 5 months is, yeah, there are things we need to do because we need to pay the bills. Yeah, there are things we need to do because that's just being an adult. But if you can do those things and do things that are easy to make the money, I can do that job in my sleep. I've done it for 17 years. It is what it is. What are you doing to make yourself live in peace? What are you doing to make yourself happy? And that's like, Bridget, to your point, that's why we do this stuff.
Yep.
This is the stuff that makes us happy. Yeah, it takes time, and yeah, it takes money, but it makes us happy. And it makes us know that we are providing stuff to the world, when we give our examples of what we're doing in our family, it's not because we are perfect at it, and it's not because we know everything. We hope that what we're doing will resonate with someone, and they can say, oh yeah, maybe that'll work. Or I didn't hear about that, or let me try that. It really isn't because we're the best parents in the world and you should do what we're doing. You've seen our kids, you know we're not. But it really is meant to be just a starting point. It really is, so that you know that we are really, truly authentic people, that what you see is what you get. If we brought our kids in here, they might have a different story, but they would tell you the same thing, that who we talk about, what we talk about, and who we are is the same people that we are when we get off this podcast. And so that to us is really, really important, that if we've got to take a break, it's because our souls are telling us to take a break. If we have a story about our kids, it's because we feel that it's going to help somebody else with their children. That's all that it is.
And like, even that is like, we're with the podcasting, we're taking on that much more of a load. Mm-hmm. So, and the energy that comes with that, especially because we often talk about heavier topics. So when we really step back, it's because it's usually spiritually needed, and we can't help and fulfill our purpose and what we intend to do and help others if we're not 100% there. Because otherwise, or we're making decisions based off of, I feel like I got to get this done. I feel like I got to do it. And it might not always be the best decision. So being able to sit back and regroup and use discernment and like look at the bigger picture and where we want to go and what is next on our next journey and the path that we're being led on, like looking at the purpose at the end of the day. And also we'll always go back to reflecting on intentions, because we're very mindful of everything that we do, especially if it's us three talking. We refer to three being Emma. Mm-hmm. And so looking and knowing that like when we post and talk, it's representing all three of us, and being able to stay grounded and knowing that it's the purpose we're on in our ultimate brand and values, and standing to that. And another thing too is going off of like, even unplugging and knowing that it's okay to unplug at times, especially because there's so much negativity on social media and the toxicity of it. Yes, don't get me wrong. Very grateful for social media, because had we not had it, we wouldn't be able to connect to people across the world and create the platforms we have. But it also goes back to self-reflection of how are you using your platform, and how are you using your voice, and how are you impacting and on your social media page? What are you influencing? And so remembering to sit back on that as well, and knowing what you're projecting out as well.
Exactly.
That was a fun episode.
Mic drop.
And we're back, but no, it'll be fun to do more podcasts, and we have a lot, especially, and know that too, like our podcast is open to everyone. If you want to come on our podcast, feel free to message us and we will talk about it, set something up.
You don't have to,
open to everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you don't have to be a survivor. You don't have to have some amazing story, whatever. If you just want to come on and talk about the world, come on, we'll talk about the world.
But even going off of that, like, even if you're not a survivor, correction, as we often say, everyone is a survivor, because we've all been through something, and we've all been through different paths in our life, whether we've had those dark moments and been taken down a different journey. No matter what, we've had to overcome some sort of adversity. Shoot, right now we're being abused by the government. We're all dealing with adversity. But man,
we're all survivors.
We're all survivors. If you're still here right now, we're all survivors. Not like, man, the mental health aspect of dealing with that whole toxic abuse. But yeah, even like just remembering that, like, we're here for everybody and here to connect. So anything else before we wrap up?
No, I'm just excited to be back. And I thank everybody, all of our listeners, for hanging in there while we took a break. And yeah, we have some really, really fun, different, exciting things that are coming in the next few months.
Oh, I love that. As I was about to go to my wrap up, so I have Trent Shelton like on the text alerts, like because of censorship and all that. So I like these two things, so I'm gonna share them. Remember, peace is something you'll never experience if you keep letting the things you can't control you. Let it go, my friends. And then the one literally that just came in now was protect your energy, stop entertaining stress, stop responding to ignorance, stay loyal to your peace. That's Trent Shelton.
And if that isn't synchronicity at its finest, there it is. If you always wondered how it works, just look in the little things. We've talked about that the whole time, and it pops up to end the podcast.
Yeah, literally stay grounded and be true to who you are. And survivors, as always, we hear you, we see you, we stand by you, sending you love, light, and blessings.